Hi, my name is Vicknair, and this is my nonfiction engagement activity. A little pre-warning, I am getting over the flu, so I'm sorry about the sniffles in advance. But anyways, audience. Who's our targeted audience? Our targeted audience will be a class of 5th graders. What's their reading level? According to the 2025 Louisiana LEAP results, the majority of those in 5th grade were proficient in their grades rating level. Additionally, when looking at the LEAP score/level, there was an average in the 40s, with the test maxing out at 50. So many students were honestly very close to maxing out on their score, and many actually did. Those that do not have a reading comprehension as high as others will have an option that is catered to their level without compromising the integrity of this project. However, that will be on a case-by-case basis. Here's the LEAP graph with the reading levels. Right here you can see 5th grade, 2025. They're in the 40s and the test maxing out 50. They're doing amazing. So they're reading on the level that they need to be when they're in 5th grade, essentially, at least in Louisiana. Okay, the lesson plan. The students are to pick out a book from the selected list of nonfiction books, a historical figure they would like to present on. The students will then read their selected book over a 3-week time period. This time period will allot for students to gather enough information and read their selected books. The students will then dress as their historical figure and present the information they learned to the class. In addition to presenting, students must create a slideshow with their information. While one student will present, the others are required to answer questions on the historical figure that is being presented. These questions consist of: who is this person? What time period did this occur? What made them a historical figure? What lasting impact have they made? What is one fun fact you liked about the historical figure? Next, we have the objective. Students will be able to connect their historical figure to the real world. Moreover, many students have a hard time bringing historical figures into their everyday life and connecting that they were people too. This will help bridge that gap. I know personally I've had that gap, especially when it comes to a lot of nonfiction things. The students will begin to engage with nonfiction outside of the nonfiction we engage in the classroom. The research they will engage in order to present ensures that they're reading more nonfiction. They're gathering information. They're learning how to collect nonfiction skills and resources. Students will be confident in their knowledge about their figure to do the presentation in front of their peers. These students will learn enough about their figure and then just present in front of their peers. Students will actively engage and listen with their peers, introducing students to historical figures they may have never heard about, because not everything we learn in school is everything. There's so much more that we could learn. And here are material and resources. So on this first column, I have a list of scholastic books. This is a list of books I found on the Scholastic website that they recommended for 5th grade reading level, and they were nonfiction historical figures. And some of these books are Those Rebels, John and Tom, She Dared Malala Yousafzai, Bobby's Story of Robert F. Kennedy, I Am Harriet Tubman, book number 6, I Am Sacagawea, book number 1, I Am Albert Einstein, book number 2, I Am Martin Luther King Jr., book number 4. That book is also by Grace Norwich. I don't know why it is not written on there. But anyways, The Secret Soldier and the story of Deborah Sampson as well. And then we also have a list of resources from epic.com, which are What's Your Story, Frederick Douglass, What's Your Story, Amelia Earhart, What's Your Story, Susan B. Anthony, Abraham Lincoln, the Great Emancipator, Nelson Mandela, World Leader for Human Rights. So I think all these people are maybe people we don't touch on or talk about in history class, and would really get the students engaged and maybe even inspire some of them. And that's why they were all chosen, to hopefully inspire someone or touch their hearts maybe, and see how that, these figures impacted someone's life. Other resources. Students are welcome to go to the local library to get more resources about their historical figure. They're also welcome to go look at the school library. Other materials needed, technology to type the presentation. It does not matter what your presentation is on as long as it is online. Clothes similar to something their historical figure would wear. And I'm going to touch more on this in a minute. Why these material and resources? The books. Each book was selected because it met the requirements of the assignment. Furthermore, they were all nonfiction in the 5th grade reading level, and they were about people who may not be often spoken about in school. The alternative resources. This segment of the previous slide offers students and parents an alternative route to buying the book for the assignment. This is provided in case students do not want to purchase the book. This means that alternative resources were the local library and the school library. This just allowed students to go somewhere else if they did not want to purchase the book. Technology. The students will have some form of technology in which they can prepare the presentation with. This will aid peers in staying engaged with the presentation. Clothes. The students will dress in clothes similar to which their historical figure would wear. This will help students bring their historical figure to life in the classroom. Procedure. The students will be instructed and handed a list of the rubric and the approved books. The class will then go to the school library. At the school library, the students will have help from the librarians with the nonfiction books. This will be done to properly introduce the nonfiction historical figures to the students. They should look around and gather ideas of which book they would like to present to their peers. The students will then read their book for about 3 weeks. Then they will come to class with their clothes, not dressed until they present, and their presentation. Before presenting, the peers will be handed a handout to answer questions on. The questions are previously mentioned on the lesson plan slide. Before the student presents, they will obviously have an option to change into their clothes. But the student will then present on their presentation to their peers for a maximum of 5 minutes. While presenting, the students will then fill out the handouts. The peers will fill out the handouts while the presenter is presenting. Does that make sense? Sorry, that was a weird way to word that. Evaluation. The success of these projects will depend on how receptive the students will be when their peers are presenting. The handout was given out in hopes of increasing the engagement of the peers. This activity will be successful, ensuring that the students will at least have some starting point for nonfiction literature. The students will be graded on how much information they have, the content of the information, how well they pay attention to their peers presenting. Reflection. How does this activity promote nonfiction learning? The students are encouraged to begin searching for an approved historical figure to to present on. They must then read the literature in order to present to their peers. How does this activity promote critical thinking? Students are encouraged to pick figures they would believe best fits the criteria for this project. In addition, they are required to think about the impact that these historicals left behind. And here are all my resources.